Hello and welcome to the Guest EdTech Virtual Summit Dubai. I'm very pleased to introduce you today to Stephen Cox, Chief Education Officer at Nordic School. We hope you enjoy the session, and I'll hand you over now to Stephen.
Hi, thank you for inviting me to present today. Today we will be discussing the education pandemic. Is there a cure? Is it time to stop taking risks? My name's Stephen Cox and I'm the Chief Education Officer for New Nordic School, based in Espoo in Finland, just outside of Helsinki, although I'm based here in Dubai in the UAE, where I've been working for the last 13 years. Most of the current educational systems are based on principles of mass production, and they're standardized and prescribed and teacher controlled. So to address this problem, at New Nordic School, we've developed a high cost, location-bound education system, which is future ready, complete education system, which is affordable and quality for all students aged 3 to 18. My role at New Nordic School is to provide overall leadership for the educational mission, vision, startup, planning and strategy. Previously, I worked in the healthcare industry, and I'm very proud of my colleagues working in the NHS during COVID-19 crisis, and particularly in the UK and healthcare workers internationally. I've been particularly admired my former colleagues from afar as they've entered sort of the front line, putting others first before themselves. And this has left me really quite humbled, working in the current profession of education. It gave me the idea to write a recent article entitled Education Pandemic, Is There a Cure? As we know, education has left us facing this new challenges by the closing of schools and the advent of online learning, and now the reopening of schools again. Education communities responded tremendously well, with endless amounts of free resources and expertise from companies and educators. However, it sometimes feels too much and ultimately kind of like initiative overload for a lot of schools. And this is kind of left teachers feeling overwhelmed. And ultimately, what I think I heard recently in EdTech conference from a colleague called Richard Gerver saying silver bullet culture. And I think these challenges are at every level. The challenges are for teachers who have had to develop the skills to operate in this new environment, challenges of leaders for developing the organizational culture, and challenges for parents as well. I've had to sort of rise to homeschooling and being able to cope at these difficult times. Over the last few months, the ability to communicate, collaborate remotely and work in uncertainty have become ever more important. The skills and attributes of grit, perseverance, resilience, leadership have really come to the forefront at this time. We're all having to continue to develop these skills and our emotional well-being as we live in this sort of ever uncertain future. So we've had to adapt and try to get used to being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And some of the things that I want to acknowledge at this point, resistance to change is really a natural human reaction. If this was a live conference and you were my audience sitting in chairs, you would go for a break and you'd probably return back to the same chair. We don't like change. We are creatures of habit. Some teachers argue that technology is not for them, and who can blame them when it fails? We need to create time. Teachers are forever creating resources. They don't have time. And so this concept of creating time is needed. And so for technology, they need to see that as a time saver and not something that sucks time away from them. In addition, teaching is very ordered and controlled, whereas learning is messy. And sometimes teachers feel a bit uncomfortable in that environment, and ever more so now, I think. So, my question to you, I guess, as the audience is, how comfortable are you with being uncomfortable? What types of people kind of do that better, can actually deal with that ambiguity more? In my experience, it's people who are full of optimism. It's people with a very positive attitude. It's people with a very strong emotional well-being. And it's people who are happy, who have purpose in their life. So how do we apply this to the current educational system in the here and now? I think what we deemed more important a couple of years ago in terms of examinations are taking a back seat, getting the grade. I see even just yesterday, back in Wales, the government cancelled GCSE and A-level exams. So what's clear is that there seems to be an overwhelming sway of opinion that we need to rethink education, that we really need to rethink and provide a change that's better for all of us. So this got me thinking about this education pandemic. So let me explain what I mean by the education pandemic. We're going through unprecedented times with COVID-19 crisis, with terrible outcomes for the virus. I'm not trying to compare the situation with our educational system, rather just use it as a metaphor, as there's some similarities between what we're dealing with now and our global education environment. Let's take the COVID-19 virus itself, which is causing this pandemic. This equates to our outdated education systems across the world, which are not meeting the needs of young people. This is where our education pandemic lies. Most of current education systems are based on principles of mass production. They're standardized, prescribed, and teacher controlled. Therefore, we need a new approach to education, one that prepares students for an unknown future. With COVID-19 virus, we're now trying to find a cure, and hopefully a vaccine is on its way soon. And in the meantime, adopt preventative measures and treatments to slow down the spread of the disease and the devastating effects of it. With our broken education system, our virus, we are finding treatments or preventative measures to stop it from spreading, which will lead to poor learning outcomes if left untreated. Good or outstanding schools, governments or whole countries, Finland is a good example of this, which I'll talk about later, put in place treatments and intervention strategies, pedagogical processes, teacher training, curriculum adaptations, and endless other initiatives which treat or prevent the broken education system from spreading its virus. This has limitations when exporting internationally, which I'll talk about later. These treatments and preventative measures lead to excellent outcomes for young people, there's no doubt about it. I've worked with some tremendous leaders internationally during my time in education. However, they do not cure the problem, and consequently, the less personalisation leads to many students not reaching their potential. Many students develop learning disorders, lack purpose, get bored, and don't go on to thrive. As I mentioned, coming from a medical background, some students go on to develop a condition that I've termed learning penia, the deficiency of learning. Some, just like COVID-19 in these countries, government, schools, institutions who develop the best preventative measures, they have the better outcomes. And we see a mixed picture of this pandemic of education across the world and in communities. So how do we develop a future-ready educational system? So are schools ready for change? Are you ready for change? So let me tell you a little bit about what we're doing at New Nordic School and what we're working on. So to address the problems of outdated, high cost, poor quality, and location-bound education, New Nordic School is providing a transformative, future-ready and complete education system. We have developed a K-12 education system which provides fully future-ready, affordable learning for all students aged 3 to 18 years of age. We apply the renowned Finnish curriculum, integrated and best pedagogical practices from around the world to provide personalised, purposeful learning, which has a real local relevant system. Our solutions brought to existing new schools worldwide through an innovative curriculum, and we empower students to explore their natural creativity, discover their true passions, and shape their own future. Our systems builds capacity and sustains improvements through effective long-term partnerships. So it's based on our own curriculum, which is the Nordic Baccalaureate, which you can see there, combining our innovative pedagogy, and we're also now developing our smart learning platform. So these are the three essential core components of our educational system. We also use Finnish pedagogy and professional development in our schools. We really use a learning philosophy which is based largely on Finnish pedagogy, but also around certain other areas. For example, equal opportunities, learning through play, personalised learning, supportive technology, lifelong learning, inclusive education, and trying to build up teachers' skills so they become more autonomous in terms of taking more responsibility for their own teaching. So these components really help develop our educational system, and it's at the core of the culture of what we build within our partner schools. Some of the features of our curriculum are based on these elements. Ultimately, it's about having interdisciplinary learning, and ultimately, it's about having subjects that link together, where real life does not happen, and things are not in isolation. It's about having competency-based. It's about having personalised learning. It's about being future-ready. It's about having mindful well-being, and it's about having purposeful learning. So all of those components are features of our curriculum. Ultimately, how this is done, in terms of we combine the three layers of our curriculum through the core competencies, on top of the sustainability development goals, which gives real purpose to learning, and also traditional subject knowledge as well. So there's this kind of three-layered approach to the delivery of our curriculum, which ultimately is wrapped around the core competencies, which I mentioned earlier, which are based from Finland. In terms of our offering, we offer different kinds of models to schools. We offer a license model where we provide our educational system and implementation of that educational system. We offer more substantial services through a managed school model. We also offer consulting services through professional development and online courses, which we've recently just launched through our website. We're also developing a hybrid school, which I'd also like to share that thinking in terms of where we think education is going using technology. So our unique feature at New Nordic School is that we provide a complete education solution and system. So we're kind of creating a new category in terms of not focusing on one particular standalone solution, which may have limited impact and may cause initiative overload. This combination of new curriculum, pedagogical innovation, and scalability makes us different, I think, from the competition. And as mentioned, we do offer consultancy in all of those areas. So what of the role of technology in terms of this presentation and the feature of what we're talking about and the whole essence of the conference? I want to discuss briefly what we're doing at New Nordic School and link that to back again to the education pandemic metaphor that I was referring to earlier. So recently I wrote an article and that's just a quote from an article that I wrote, but really we're entering an era where there is a new role now for teachers, and I think we hear a lot about teachers being facilitators of learning, and obviously that's been more challenging online, But I see when sort of normality returns in some respects, teachers becoming much more what I call activators of learning, where there's going to be a partnership between the teacher, the student, and the technology. And each will play its role. AI will not replace teachers. It will supplement the teacher's role and do other things. So it enables teachers to be more free, to be more creative with the students. Do we need full bricks and mortar schools in the future? Can we save half the costs by having basically a school where students come and go and work online? Quite possibly, yes. And so that's where a hybrid model may come into the future. So our smart learning platform is really focusing on the following areas. It will enable more personalised lesson planning. It will personalise professional development. And it will also offer this standalone student platform that's going to personalise student learning. So this will enable our system to be able to mass scale at quality and also reduce the burden on teachers with things such as workload reduction and simplification of workflows by lesson planning, for example. But in terms of developing any smart learning platform, we really need to put learning goals ahead of the technology. We really need to ask this question: does the technology improve the learning first? And does it add value? And I think that's really important when you're designing a new technology or you're selecting something that you're going to use within your school. The first part of our smart learning platform, or first phase of it, is our educators platform. And this platform is going to provide assisting tools for educators to plan and manage their lessons, to conduct live assessments. In addition, it's also going to track an educator's activities on the platform so that it can enable personalised professional development. And the lesson planning tool is something that's going to help teachers plan lessons. So it's going to be able to differentiate students and ultimately help teachers group their students more effectively to plan the relevant personalised learning tasks for them. Assessment tools that are going to help teachers assess, obviously, via self-assessment, formative assessment, collecting this portfolio of evidence of learning. So that's our educators platform, which is the first phase of our smart learning platform. The second phase of our smart learning platform is to actually develop the machine learning systems that are going to analyze and optimize and ultimately personalize and make the platform more adaptive. So by collecting all the activities and all of this data of the progress of the teachers and the students from various components and various different sources, the system is going to be able to recognize and establish effective learning patterns to recommend optimized, personalized resources to everyone. And that's the whole crux of the machine learning part of the system. The third part of the platform is focusing on technology, which is going to enable student-led learning. So the smart learning platform is going to let students take control of their own learning, optimize their own learning, push the relevant learning, assess the relevant learning at their own time. So students can set their own learning goals and can track their own progress, can track their own achievements. The curriculum assessments are going to be mapped to the competencies and our curriculum, and the relevant digital content then pushed to the student, and so a student will be able to showcase all of their activities through a portfolio of evidence. And so learning can take place either inside a classroom or outside a classroom or even outside a school. And this is going to obviously encourage students to learn in any environments at any time. So what we're offering at New Nordic School is really affordable and a truly scalable hybrid education, which is meeting the needs of the current challenges which is requiring us to move to more of a hybrid form of learning and a hybrid solution. I'm hoping that when schools do return to some form of normal, that actually they maybe rethink that actually we cannot carry on doing things the same way as we've done before. Otherwise, we're going to get the same results. Maybe we should look to change one or two areas. And I think that's where we come in, really. So just to mention that in terms of down the line, we are developing our hybrid school. So this will combine all those elements in the smart learning platform with our curriculum, with our innovative pedagogy, so we can enable schools to provide highly scalable, instructor-free and schedule-free learning. So we're going to bring personalised learning to each student, and so the learners can learn at their own pace and interests. And so this is, I think, where education is going, because ultimately you can save costs on bricks and mortar of a school. You only need the costs for half a school, but ultimately, I think that's where we need to look for the future. So, what is next for education? I've just talked about hybrid school, but if I go back to our education pandemic metaphor and the title of my presentation, is it time to stop taking risks? Of course, when it comes to COVID-19. Yes, for our own safety and well-being, let us listen to what the science and doctors and medical profession tell us. In terms of education, I think no. I think let us try some new ideas and let us encourage risk-taking, which can bring about more purposeful learning inside and outside the classroom. Schools, parents and teachers have all had to take risks, setting up new ways of learning, and in some cases that may have paid off, and in some cases it may have been less effective. What I do hope going forwards is that we do not stop trying new ways of learning because of the limitations of our current education system. We need to rethink the changes we need to put in place now for us all to grow and thrive at this challenging time. With COVID-19, we hope for a cure sooner rather than later. And again, I admire and respect the tireless hours our scientists and doctors are putting into research to enable that to happen. But what about a cure or a vaccine for our education pandemic? What can we do to stop this spread of learning penia? Of course, education is complicated. There is not a single injection or vaccine that's going to come along and cure the education pandemic now or in the future. But I believe there are changes we can make and consider now at a country, government, or even at school level. First, we need to fix our education system today and provide a new curriculum and systems that meet the needs of young people. One that's future ready, that does not require initiative overload to treat it and shapes the future for lifelong learners. Secondly, we need to improve the blend and communication between schools and university. We need to look at alternative pathways which are not heavily reliant on grades and knowledge, but draw upon various sources of evidence that evaluate the whole student, which puts well-being and happiness at the heart of decision-making. Of course, subject knowledge is important and there's a place for it in education and careers, but we need to focus on the skills and competencies that all of us need right now, even more so in the future. What about technology, you may ask? I think technology is going to be the enabler and activator of these changes, which will enable us to have a new educational system and a new curriculum, which is going to be cost effective and of quality. I think that these quality, affordable solutions is about developing people and eradicating this education pandemic. Just like the ongoing pandemics, it's the people that really matter at this time. So, one final message from the education pandemic story. As I said, it's the people at the heart of transformation in education. And they're the people who will continue, and we will need to continue to have dedicated educators, both now and in the future, who are willing to take risks to lead on these new challenges and really help us find a cure and to move us forwards on our educational journey. I think the future is going to value, what people that understand learning, that really understand what they do with what they know, not necessarily just what they know. And I think, it's important that we really do focus on the people. So I want to offer, before I close my presentation, not necessarily the cure, but some suggestions from my personal experience and some tips, if you like, some top tips of what I would recommend you did, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a leader, or whether you're an educator or parent. I think these are things that I've learned, particularly more recently, but also over the span of working in education. I think first of all, you need to stay and focus on your own well-being. That's take care, put your own oxygen mask on first before you take care of others. I think that's really, really important. So tip number one there is know your audience. So let students make the choices and involve them in the decision making. Meet students on their turf, involve them, and you facilitate that, because ultimately we really do need to engage with students in terms of understanding how they learn and how they want to learn. Secondly, begin with the end in mind. And this comes from Franklin Covey. This comes from Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits. Always ask the question around starting with the pedagogy first and then backwards plan from that. And ask the question, does the technology improve the learning? And if the answer is no, don't use it. Because technology is going to amplify good teaching, but it's not going to get rid of bad teaching. So tip number 2, begin with the end in mind. Tip number 3, as Simon Sinek said, start with the why. Have a clear vision for your school, department, your own personal goals, and decide what steps you need to take to move that forward. If it doesn't support the why, then don't do it again. Ask these questions. What's the core purpose of your organization, of your school? And are they the same as your own values? And that, are you aligned? And if not, are you going to do something about it? Tip number 4, learn by failing. So when was the last time you did something for the first time? And ultimately, that's what failing is all about, in a sense of trying out new things, and if they don't work, being accepting of them, and ultimately learn through that process of how maybe you might do things differently next time. So I would really encourage this learn by failing model. Tip number 4, learn by failing. Tip number 5, develop a growth mindset. So first thing to say here is that newborn babies are not born unmotivated. Okay, we all have the ability to develop this. Appoint people, if you're a leader, who have tough-minded optimism and have a growth mindset. I think that I always ask the question, are individuals recruited, developed and promoted based on their ability to succeed in a team-based environment? Do they understand innovation? Growth mindset is really key, more than ever, to the development of teachers, but also the development of students and embarking on an unknown future. Tip number 5, develop a growth mindset. Tip number 6 there, build a net. So put a structure in place that lets teachers develop their skills in technology, and don't worry if it fails. Develop a coaching mindset. If you're a leader, a coaching program in your school is one of the best ways you can build loyalty and build trust. Coaching is unlocking a person's potential to maximize their own performance. So when you build this coaching environment and network, you build a net. So when teachers fall, they hit that net, somebody else is there to pick them up and work with them and able to try and take a risk together on trying to improve some aspect of their development. So, you're able to really offer a support there, a support net. So tip number 6, build a net. Final tip number 7, build this risk-taking culture. In Finland, for example, in order to transform education, there's a large emphasis placed on trust. Right from the top to the classroom level, right the way from the government to the leader, to the teacher, to the student. And this level of autonomy is really key to its success. It's a whole society. So, but the thing is, can you export that? Well, it's difficult to export a society of trust, but you can. Trust isn't curriculum specific. It works largely intrinsic for people. So you can't change a society, but you can build trust within the school or within yourself or an organization you work in. So simply put, it's about building a high performance culture. And this time it requires, to have a high performance culture, you need a common vision, common goal, collaboration, challenge, and then holding people to account. I think that leadership at this time is about building this high performance culture, and it requires a slightly different mindset to perhaps say a year ago. It requires this clarity from a leader to remove all the noise. It requires this simplicity, it requires this continuity and connection. And it does require us still to be able to try and have fun when we can and create this team environment. I think that, good leaders lead by a set of rules, but I think at these times, a great leader also knows when to break them. And I also think we need to place a greater emphasis on well-being now, and in order to be able to ensure that every individual's needs is taken care of. Finally, there's a quote that I came across at another conference recently, and it really, for me, summarizes that leadership and teaching and individually, it's about developing for the future. The future is really shaped by people who are really optimistic. It's not shaped by people who are pessimistic. And the future is shaped with enthusiasm. And at New Nordic School, we have 4 core values, which I just want to leave you with. Our core values really help us to create this value for tomorrow. And that's about being bold. None of us are perfect. We all really need to take risks. We all make mistakes. It's about innovating, creativity being at the core of what we do. It's about collaborating, the greater being better than the one, and the best results coming together as a result of that. And it's about empowering. When people are empowered, you make things happen, and you generate a confidence to be able to shape a future for tomorrow. Thank you for listening to me today, and I hope that you've got a couple of takeaways there. Please do get in contact with me if you want to find out more about what we're doing, or just want to reach out and have a discussion around education. Thank you very much.
If you have any questions, Stephen, about anything you've heard in today's session, you can connect with him through the networking system on the virtual event platform. This is just one of many on-demand sessions that you can watch at any time during the summit, as well as a full program of live keynote and panel sessions across both days. And we hope you enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you very much, Stephen. Much appreciated.
Thank you.